God's justice, the 13 ways he deals with those who cross you. When you bury someone in dirt they never deserved, you're not just staining their name, you're planting seeds in your own soil. And the day will come when the harvest of that injustice grows tall in your own garden, and you will be the one forced to taste it. Chosen One picture this clearly. They kept poking at a sleeping lion, thinking it was harmless fun until the day the lion opened its eyes. That's where we are now. They thought they could play with your peace, chip away at your spirit, and walk away untouched. Like flicking a few drops of water on a flame, assuming it would die out only to find the fire now burns hotter, brighter, unstoppable. And that heat, it's already making its way back to them. Here's the truth they can't escape. Those who deliberately harm or slander others often carry the very guilt and insecurity they try to hide. They project it onto the innocent because facing their own reflection is too much to bear. But the more they hide, the louder their actions reveal them. And the universe? It is never blind. Karma is not a distant maybe waiting in the shadows, it is a living chain reaction. Every deed is a stone thrown into the waters of time, sending ripples outward, and every ripple returns to the shore it came from. Right now, Chosen One, that shore is their life, and the tide is rushing in faster than they ever imagined. And thank you, Chosen One. If this message resonates, pass it forward, press like, subscribe, and help carry this light to more souls. Spreading truth is not just my work, it's ours. Together, we are part of a force that doesn't need to shout to be heard, because its presence is felt in the quiet, in the unseen, in the places where hearts awaken. Now, let's return to the heart of what's unfolding. This is not petty revenge. This is the kind of karma that makes people stare at the ceiling in the dark, haunted by the echo of their own choices. They thought their whispers, their lies, their small betrayals could fracture you and elevate them. They believed they were clever architects of your downfall. But what they failed to see was this: you were never just another name on their list. You are a soul the universe has guarded like a rare gem, sealed away in a vault no malice could truly reach. And while they were busy pounding at the lock, thinking they had the upper hand, they didn't know a silent alarm had already summoned the highest authority, the cosmic law that never sleeps. They mistook your silence for surrender, your calm for ignorance, your kindness for naivety. But silence can be watchfulness. Calm can be strategy. Kindness can be the most powerful shield. Every time they tried to dim your light, they forgot one eternal truth: the universe runs on balance. When you steal from the innocent, you incur a debt. And debts, Chosen One, are always paid, often with interest that burns far hotter than they ever expected. That interest, Chosen One, that's what's striking them now. Watch closely. Their carefully built plans are collapsing, one brick at a time. The faces that once lit up at their presence now look away. Their circle is shrinking. Their opportunities are slipping through their fingers. And the very energy they hurled at you is coiling back around them, sharp and unrelenting, like a boomerang they never saw coming. Karma rarely storms in with drums and thunder. More often, it arrives quietly, deliberately, with the precision of a surgeon's hand or the focus of a marksman who never misses. And here's the twist: some of them didn't just weave their own downfall, they pulled others into it. Friends, family, even strangers who barely knew you, but still chose to nod along. Every single one who played their part is now feeling the weight settle on their shoulders. That's why this message bears the title it does, because nobody is escaping. Not one. And now, they sit wishing they had just left you in peace. But you never needed to chase revenge. You never needed to lift a finger or fight their way. The universe saw it all. The universe kept the receipts. And now, the universe is delivering a payment plan they cannot outrun. So keep walking forward, Chosen One. Let the same silence they mistook for weakness continue to guard you like armor. Because in truth, that silence was your greatest protection all along. And if you're ready to walk with me, step by step, seeing exactly how the universe is aligning every consequence for every hand that was raised against you, leave a sign. Drop. 777. Below, if you can already feel the truth of these words. And if this message reaches your spirit, know that your support helps carry these truths to the ones who need them most. Every bit of support, whether it's a word spoken in agreement, a share that carries the message further, or a gift that sustains the work, keeps this mission alive. Your energy fuels this voice, chosen one. And together we ensure more souls hear what others tried so hard to silence. So take a breath. Settle in. Because if you've truly walked through the fire they pushed you into, you'll feel why you need to stay until the final word. Number 1, they thought you were prey. They just discovered you're the trap. When someone tries to bury a soul, the universe protects. They're not digging your grave, they're digging their own. And they'll be the first to fall in. They saw you as an easy target. Someone they could toy with, drain, and discard like yesterday's trash. They believed their lies could stain your name without consequence, never thinking they'd one day choke on the bitterness of those same words. But they were wrong. So wrong. Because you are not just someone. You are a trigger point for a law older than time itself, unyielding, exact, and far more unforgiving than anything they can comprehend. Picture this, chosen one. A thief slips into a house they think is abandoned. No lights, no sound, no sign of life. They creep in, convinced they're safe, unaware that every wall hides motion sensors, cameras, and silent alarm. By the time they realize what they've stepped into, the response is already on its way, and it's far too late to run. That's exactly what happened here. They thought they could slip into your life, unnoticed, rearrange what was sacred, take what wasn't theirs, and walk away untouched. But the moment their hands reached where they had no right, the clock began to tick. From that instant, the universe began recording every move, every word, every thought laced with malice. They weren't just bruising your feelings, they were clashing with a force that exists beyond human law. And here's the truth, whether they believe in it or not, cosmic law requires no permission to act. You were never a casual target they could bully for sport. You are and have always been a living contract of balance. Harm you without cause, and the universe writes their name in the book of debt. And in this realm, debts are never erased, they are collected. I know some chosen ones may ask, but why didn't the universe stop them sooner? Why did I have to endure that pain? Here's the answer. The universe wastes no lessons. Your suffering was never a victory for them. It was the rope they wrapped around their own neck. Every attempt to humiliate you, every blow they struck was another line written in their own bill. And now the payment is due. They didn't realize they had stepped into a test. Every encounter with you was part of an unseen examination. Would they choose decency? Would they choose fairness? Or would they exploit, manipulate, and betray? You already know the choice they made. And now, every person who took part in that choice, whether by action, by word, or by silent approval, every gossip, every instigator, every silent bystander who took pleasure in your pain is now receiving their portion of the fallout. It is no accident that their projects are crumbling, their relationships fracturing, and their reputations slipping through their fingers like dry sand. That is the nature of spitting into the wind. It always finds its way back to your own face. And here's the cruel poetry of it all. They thought they held the power. They thought they were the hunters. Yet all along, they were walking deeper into a snare woven from their own intentions. You never had to lift a finger. That's what cuts them the deepest. There were no counterattacks, no smear campaigns, no desperate grasp to even the score. You simply kept moving forward, Now, the very silence they once mocked has become the most haunting sound they've ever known. Some feel it in their bodies, the uneasy weight pressing against their chest when they recall what they did to you, the tightness in their throat when your name is spoken. Misfortune clings to them like a shadow, following no matter how far or fast they run. They may never admit it aloud, but deep down they know. They can't shake the thought, did all this start when I crossed them? Yes, it did. Because you were never just another person to be handled, controlled, or brought low. You were the living embodiment of a law that cannot be bent, bribed, or bypassed. What they touched was more than your life. It was a protected zone. And when that zone is violated, the consequences don't simply knock politely, they break the door down. Now they sit in the same darkness they once tried to throw you into. The difference? You learned how to survive it. They won't. They're scrambling for excuses, blaming bad luck, pointing fingers at others, anything but facing the truth. And that truth is simple. They should have left you alone. This is the kind of karma that is unmoved by tears, untouched by promises, and unstoppable once set in motion. The damage is already on its way. And here's the bitter reality, they haven't even felt the full force yet. What they're experiencing now is just the wind before the storm. So let this remind you, chosen one, you were never powerless. You were a mirror. They looked into you and revealed their true nature. The good ones passed the test. The rest now live in the ruins of their own making. There is no cancel button for the law they broke. They wrote their ending the moment they crossed you, and now they are trapped inside it. Number 2, they took your silence for surrender. But you were only giving them the rope to hang themselves. A tiger doesn't roar at every provocation it waits. It watches, because it knows the moment it moves, the entire jungle shifts. They mistook your calm face, your measured steps, and your refusal to erupt in rage for weakness. But what they didn't see was the power in restraint and the storm it quietly holds. What they never understood was that every time you didn't respond, every time you let their lies slide without a fight, every time you chose peace over public war, you weren't retreating. You were restraining a force they would not have survived had it been unleashed. Picture this, chosen one. Someone dangles over the edge of a cliff, gripping a rope for dear life, and you're the one holding the other end. They mock you, hurl insults, throw stones your way, convinced you'll never let go. And for a time, you don't, because you know the moment your hand releases, gravity will finish what they started. That was you, holding their rope, buying them time, hoping perhaps they would stop before it was too late. But they didn't. They kept yanking, kept shaking, kept testing your grip until finally you stepped back. And the drop they're in now? That's the fall they begged for. Sometimes silence is not surrender, it's a loaded weapon you've chosen not to fire. You weren't afraid of their power over you. You were fully aware of your power over them. You knew your words, your truth, your receipts, your influence could dismantle their illusion in seconds. And you knew once that truth was released, there would be no undoing it? You knew that a single, calculated move could unravel their entire image in an instant. But you also carried a truth they could never grasp. Power without control is not power at all, is chaos. You had the power, but you also had the discipline to keep it sheathed until the moment truly called for it. That wasn't cowardice, it was sacred restraint. And I know the questions stirring in your mind, why should I have had to hold back at all? Because, chosen one, part of your strength lies in knowing the weight of your own hand. You could have swung, and yes, you would have landed the blow, but you understood once you moved, there would be no turning back. Restraint is not about sparing them for their sake. It's about refusing to let their chaos pull you into a storm you never chose. You weren't shielding them because they deserved mercy. You were protecting your own frequency, your own peace, your unshakable alignment with the law of balance. Mercy isn't given because they've earned it. It's given because you have nothing to prove. Think of it this way: a dam holds back millions of gallons of water. On the other side are towns, fields, entire lives that could be swept away in moments if the wall gave way. You were that dam! Every insult, every betrayal, every smear was water building up behind you. And instead of tearing down the wall and drowning them instantly, you held it back not because they were worth saving, but because you trusted the universe to release that flood in its own time, in its own way, without you ever having to break your hands on the wheel. But here's the mistake they made. They saw that control and called it softness. They mistook your refusal to fight on their level for an inability to fight at all. So they pressed harder, shouted louder, and struck crueler, never realizing you were the pause between action and consequence. The only reason the storm hadn't already torn through their lives was because you were standing in the gap, holding it back. Your silence was never their victory. It was their warning shot. Each time you walked away, they believed they'd won. What they didn't understand was that your departure signaled the true battle was about to begin. Only this time, you would not be the one fighting it. You stepped aside, and the universe stepped in. Now, they're discovering the difference between your justice and the universe's justice. Yours would have been swift, sharp, and clean. The universe's version, it is slow, it is layered, it is inescapable. It doesn't just strip away pride, it dismantles comfort, shakes stability, and shatters their false sense of control. And that, chosen one, is why you can stand today without regret. You lost nothing by staying quiet. If anything, you gained the satisfaction of watching those who once mocked your silence now choke on it. Their boldness has vanished. Their false confidence has collapsed. The same voices that roared against you now tremble, whisper, and avoid your name like it's cursed. Because the calm before the storm is never empty, it is heavy with everything the storm is about to unleash. When they look back now, they'll see the truth: you were never weak. You were the shield between them and the full weight of what they summoned upon themselves. And the moment you stepped aside, that shield vanished. That's why what they're facing now isn't random misfortune. It's the precise accumulation of every shove, every provocation, every time they crossed the sacred boundaries of your spirit. You were never the storm. You were the barrier holding it back. And when you finally moved, they met face to face the very force they had mocked, tested, and tempted for so long. Now the payment is coming in ways they can't disguise. Their health is fracturing under the pressure. Their relationships are unraveling. People they counted on, people they thought would never leave, are quietly stepping away, unwilling to be caught in the fallout. This isn't just life teaching them a lesson. This is the universe sending them an itemized bill, every receipt attached, making them feel the cost of every choice they made when they mistook you for powerless. And here's the most brutal truth they know. They know you could have ended them long before karma arrived. They know you had the truth, the proof, the power to dismantle their lies in an instant. They know you gave them more chances than they ever earned. And that knowing, that silent, gnawing awareness, is eating them alive more than any outside punishment ever could. Because now they understand the silence they mocked was the mercy that spared them from a faster, sharper ending. But mercy always has an expiration date. And when mercy runs out, those who mistook it for weakness discover exactly why they should have left you alone. Number 3, they tried to steal your soul's signature. Now the bill is in their name. You can steal a crown, but if it wasn't forged for your head, it will not honor you. It will crush you. They didn't just betray you. They reached for something the universe never placed within their grasp. This wasn't the petty theft of time, money, or attention. This was an attempt to copy, counterfeit, and hijack what was sacred in you, your spiritual identity. They didn't want to simply stand beside you. They wanted to be you. They studied your steps, borrowed your words, mimicked your style, thinking they could wear your essence like a costume. But the truth is this: what's in you is not for sale, and it cannot be transferred. It is woven into your very being like a spiritual fingerprint the universe instantly recognizes. Picture it: chosen one, someone slips into a vault, believing they can escape with a priceless gem. They get away, or so they think, until they discover the gem was designed to release a tracking signal the moment it's touched by the wrong hands. That's what happened here. The moment they tried to carry what was never theirs, they triggered a karmic response written specifically for them, not a vague consequence, but a customized reckoning, precise and impossible to outrun. That is why they wore the mask of admiration while secretly plotting your depletion. They longed for your gift, yet refused to pay the price you endured to carry it. But here's the unshakable truth about spiritual theft: it is like trying to install a program on the wrong operating system. They thought they could move in your power, yet instead it is collapsing their entire structure mentally, emotionally, financially, even physically. They imagined they could outwit the universe. But spiritual assignments cannot be stolen. They are given. And when a soul forces itself into a role it was never formed for, the weight of it becomes its destruction. That is why they now wander confused, paranoid, and unstable. Every false compliment, every calculated manipulation, every attempt to siphon your light has returned with interest. For karma always demands full payment. They did not merely lose. They inherited burdens they cannot bear. You never had to act against them. The energy they corrupted became the very snare that ensnared them. For when you steal from what is sacred, you do not simply fail, you are audited by the universe. And that audit is never gentle. Number 4, they sought to shatter your image, yet the shards tore their own hands. A lie may travel swiftly, but when the truth arrives, it does not knock, it bursts through the door with force. They were convinced they could erase you. They believed a few whispers in the right ears, a poisoned word passed along, would be enough to destroy your name. But they wanted more than to wound your reputation. They wanted to erase it from the room before you ever entered, and in reaching to break you, they struck their own reflection. Imagine this: chosen one, a hand hurls a stone at a mirror, believing it will destroy the image inside. Instead, the glass shatters, and every fragment points back at the attacker, multiplying their own image for all to witness. This is what happened here. The harder they tried to smear you, the more the universe tilted the light so every watching eye could see exactly who was holding the brush of deception. They did not merely gossip, they performed. Every lie was staged. Every counterfeit smile was a costume. And for a time, the audience applauded. But performances grow stale when the script no longer matches reality. Cracks begin to show. People remember what they have witnessed with their own eyes. They begin to ask, if their words were true, why does the picture not add up? One by one, the crowd stops believing. What they called the destruction of your name was, in truth, a public confession of envy, of insecurity, of the unease they felt simply because you existed in the same space. Your very presence exposed the corners of themselves they refused to face. They did not want your absence because of any wrong you had done, but because you were living proof of what they could never become. And now, the energy they aimed at you has turned upon them like a boomerang. The mouths that once craved lies about you are now repeating truths about them. The hands that once applauded their tales now point to their disgrace. The stage they built to ridicule you has become the platform where their downfall is played out before all. You never had to fight for your reputation. You only had to remain steadfast, remain grounded, and let time peel away the mask. And now, it is plain, they did not tarnish your name. They unmasked their own. Number 5, they believed they had shattered you, but all they did was awaken your war mode. Some wounds do not close you. They open doors you never knew existed. They were certain the blow they dealt would write your final chapter. They thought the betrayal would drain you dry, that the loss would keep you crawling, that the trauma would reduce you to a shadow of who you once were. In their minds, they saw you folding inward, retreating into silence, vanishing from the field entirely. But what they did not understand is this: chosen ones do not break as others do. Pain does not destroy us, it rewires us. Picture it, chosen one, a priceless artifact buried deep in the earth for centuries, covered in dust, untouched. Then one day, a storm swept across the land, tearing the earth open, and the artifact emerged, gleaming in its full glory. That storm was your betrayal, your heartbreak, your nights of deepest darkness. They thought they were burying you deeper, but they were only breaking the shell that concealed your power. Science tells us that pressure forms diamonds. History tells us that great trials forge unshakable leaders. And that is precisely what happened to you. Every sleepless night, every tear shed in silence, every moment of isolation was like a sacred code being written into your spirit, unlocking something hidden in the very fibers of your being. A memory of who you have always been, not just in this life, but in the eternal core of your existence. They believed they had silenced you. In truth, they placed into your hands the map to your higher self. Your sight sharpened. You began to discern patterns, motives, and lies invisible to others. You moved with precision, spoke with authority, and carried yourself in a way that caused conversations to halt mid-sentence. This was not merely healing, it was activation. And here lies their greatest fear: you are not returning as the person they once knew. You are sharper now, more strategic, fully guided by divine clarity. The same storm they thought would sink you became the wind that cleared your path. New doors are opening. Dead weight has fallen away. Unexpected allies are stepping forward. And all while, those who plotted your downfall are forced to watch. They did not break you. They shattered the illusion that you were ever powerless. And in doing so, they released a version of you that moves as if it already knows its destination. They cannot explain it, but they feel it, and it terrifies them. For now, chosen one, you are no longer merely surviving. You are untouchable. Number 6, this is not misfortune. It is the bill for crossing a protected soul. The universe does not take revenge, it takes inventory. And when the count is finished, the invoice is delivered to the exact address it is owed. What they endure now is not a streak of bad luck. It is not random hardship. It is the precise, itemized payment for a spiritual crime they thought no one witnessed. Every sleepless night, every sudden loss, every door that slams shut is a receipt for violating one they should have never touched. Picture this, chosen one. Someone spends recklessly on a credit card that isn't theirs, convinced no one is keeping track. They buy, they take, they indulge until the day the bill arrives, heavy with interest, and the name printed on the account is theirs. That is karma. The charge is crossing a sacred soul. The interest is the suffering that follows. They treated your loyalty as if it were common. They handled your love as if it could be replaced. They fed on your spirit like a banquet they believed would never end. But here's what they never saw: you were marked. Not marked for ego or applause, but marked for impact. Marked with an energy that shifts atmospheres and makes darkness tremble. And when someone wounds that kind of soul, the universe does not issue a second warning. They mistook your patience for weakness. It was not weakness, it was grace. Grace you allowed them to draw from until the well ran dry. And when you stepped back, that grace stepped back with you, leaving them exposed to the very consequences they once mocked. Now, they are not wrestling with you. They are wrestling with the weight of every lie, every manipulation, every underhanded move they swore would remain hidden. What is striking them now is not random, it is precise. The universe is not petty, it is exact. It remembers. And the moment you withdrew your presence, it withdrew its protection. That is why their life now unravels in ways no affirmation, distraction, or counterfeit optimism can repair. This is not bad luck. It is not poor timing. It is the law of accountability. They did not merely harm a person, they violated what is sacred. And when that law is broken, the payment is not negotiable. The debt is due, and this time, there are no extensions. Number 7. They smirked at your fall, now they choke on your rise. It is effortless to laugh at someone on the ground until that person stands taller than you have ever stood. They believed your lowest valley was your ending. In your struggle, in your misunderstanding, in the stripping away of all that was familiar, they made sport of your pain. Every stumble was a punchline. Every silence you kept was a green light for them to speak louder. They nodded in agreement with gossip, exchanged vile jokes behind your back, and felt taller watching you shrink. To them, your loss was proof they were above you. But what they never understood is this: you were not losing, you were loading. The breakdown they celebrated was simply the clearing of the ground for a rebuilding they could never halt. The universe never rushes transformation. It allows the betrayal, the loneliness, the silence to strip away every false layer, so when the rise comes, no one can mistake it for luck. And now, that rise has come. You are moving with a power they cannot define. Doors are opening in places they swore you would never enter. Opportunities that should have taken years are appearing without warning. And it is driving them to madness, not merely because you shine, but because your light exposes their mockery for the cruelty it truly was. Picture this, chosen one. Someone laughs at a seed buried in the soil, certain it is dead only to return months later to find it has become a towering tree that blocks their view entirely. That is you. While they mocked, you rooted. And now, your growth casts a shadow they cannot escape. Here is the truth they cannot shake. Your success is not just a personal victory, it is living evidence. Evidence that they misjudged you, underestimated you, and wagered against someone who was never finished. They were not merely spectators, they were characters in the very chapter that now makes your comeback thunder louder. Deep down, they feel it: the guilt, the unease, the dread of having mocked one who was all along being protected, prepared, and positioned. They thought they were watching a burial, but in reality, they were witnessing the soil being turned for your bloom. Your elevation does not merely silence their tongues, it records, in full view, exactly who was laughing when they thought your story had ended. Now, the silence from their side is no longer mere quiet, it is deafening. Number 8, they buried lies in the dark. Now, they harvest shame under the noonday sun. When poison is planted, it is only a matter of time before the roots break the surface and choke the planter's own garden. They believed they were untouchable in the shadows, whispering low, twisting truth until it became unrecognizable, passing their false version of events from ear to ear like a secret too clever to be traced. They thought that if they moved subtly enough, if they stirred the pot behind closed doors, the mess would never splash back on them. But they forgot one law: energy does not vanish. Every seed grows, and nothing stays buried forever. Picture this, chosen one. Someone hides a handful of seeds in a distant corner, certain no one will notice. They water them in secret, smiling at their own craft, waiting for the sprout. But when it breaks the soil, it is not flowers, it is weeds. Sharp, invasive, spreading into spaces they never intended, visible to all. That is their lies. That is their betrayal. What they planted to harm you has grown into something that is now overtaking their own life. You did not need to chase them down. You did not need to go from person to person pleading your case. The truth has its own heartbeat, and when it wakes, it moves without command. Now, the very mouths they once used to spread falsehoods are questioning them. The same people they convinced to turn on you are studying the cracks in their story and seeing it does not align. The beauty of this karmic exposure is in its precision: no public battles, no shouting matches, no petty revenge. Only a quiet, perfectly timed unveiling. The same way they sowed their deceit in silence is the same way the truth now rises to meet them. The universe is revealing it all publicly, clearly, and without a trace of confusion. And that is what is breaking them. It is not merely that they are being exposed, it is that the unveiling is happening without you ever touching the dirt. As you rise steady, calm, undeniable, your growth throws a harsher light on what they fought to keep hidden. Your stability lays bare their chaos. Your peace exposes their insecurity. Your consistency makes their lies collapse under their own weight. They planted betrayal. Now they are harvesting exposure. But this time, the crowd is not laughing with them. They are watching them unravel. And the part that cuts the deepest, they are reaping only what they themselves have sown. Number 9, they waited for your collapse. Now they are the ones in pieces. When you dig a pit for another, you do not simply risk falling into it. Sometimes the ground crumbles beneath you first. They did not just want to see you stumble, they craved it. Your pain was their entertainment. Your setbacks, in their minds, were proof that they were superior, sharper, untouchable. They hovered over your life like vultures, waiting for the moment you would stop fighting so they could feed on what remained. When you withdrew in silence to heal, they mistook that pause for your permanent end. But your silence was not surrender, it was incubation. You were not breaking, you were reforming. Piece by piece, you were becoming something they would have no weapon against. They could not see that your very presence unsettled the illusions they clung to. You did not need to flaunt your strength, your existence alone fractured their lies. And when they came for you, they were not simply attacking a person, they were striking at a force they could neither define nor defeat. And now the shift has arrived. Every drop of poison they poured in your direction is now dripping back into their own cup. The lost jobs, the fractured relationships, the sleepless nights, none of it is coincidence. It is the return on the intentions they planted. The very energy they pushed toward you is circling back like a homing missile. Picture it, chosen one. A storm sent to destroy you misses entirely and instead floods their own house. That is exactly what is happening. While you rise from the rubble, they tried to bury you beneath. They are stumbling over the wreckage of their own creation. And the cruelest twist for them? The very trials they applauded in your life became the blueprint for your transformation. What they designed to end you, instead refined you, forged you, and clothed you in armor they cannot penetrate. Now, as you stand in renewed strength, you are a living reminder of their fragility, and they cannot unsee it. This is not pettiness. This is not revenge. This is balance. The universe restoring everything to its rightful owner. Number 10, their sorry cannot undo what they have already set in motion. An apology may soothe their conscience, but it will not erase the invoice the universe has already sent. They were given chance after chance to turn back subtle warning signs, that knot in the stomach they couldn't explain, dreams they couldn't shake, the heavy resistance in the air whenever they plotted against you. Even their own spirit whispered, "Do not do this." But pride is a reckless driver, and it pushed them straight through every caution light. And now, with the storm they summoned pounding at their own door, here they come sending awkward messages, speaking in shaky tones, suddenly showing concern. But this is not repentance. This is panic. They are not grieved by the wound they gave you. They are only troubled because the cut they made is now bleeding into their own life. This is not empathy, it is fear of the bill coming due. And here is their problem. Karma is never deceived by performance. It is unmoved by carefully crafted words or tearful phone calls. It reads energy. It remembers intention. It replays the unseen moments when they laughed at your pain, exploited your kindness, or pushed you harder just to see you break. Picture this, chosen one. A thief breaks into a home, triggers every alarm, and then believes they can stop the police by mailing the homeowner a letter that says, "Sorry." That is exactly how foolish their attempt is. Some doors, once opened, cannot be closed on command. Some systems, once activated, will run their full course. They assumed time would dilute their actions, that ignoring it long enough would make it vanish. But spiritual law has no expiration date. Every offense was a seed, and those seeds are blooming now, not because you cursed them, but because the very system they mocked has decided it is time to harvest. Now they seek your forgiveness. Not because they value it, but because they believe it will quiet the consequences. But this is no longer your battle. This is the ledger balancing itself. They gambled with sacred energy and they lost. The fallout is not optional. It is scheduled. Number 11. They hurled energy like a weapon, and now it returns sharper than when it left their hand. Throw a blade into the wind, and do not be surprised when it turns and finds the hand that cast it. They treated energy as if it were a toy, something to twist, aim, and release without consequence. They believed that if they were calculated enough, if they gaslight you just right, if they masked their cruelty beneath a calm smile, they could walk away untouched. They saw your silence and called it weakness, your empathy and loyalty mere foolishness. But they did not account for the oldest truth in existence. Energy does not vanish. It travels and it always comes home. They knew where you were tender. They took those wounds and fashioned them into blueprints for manipulation. They pressed every soft spot not to heal, but to control. And because you did not retaliate, they mistook your restraint for inability. What they never saw coming was the moment you stepped away, removing yourself from their reach entirely. You did not swing back. You did not smear their name. You simply left. And in that moment, the boomerang began its return. Now, every lie, every whispered insult, every smirk hidden behind closed doors is finding its way back to them. And here is the part that is breaking them from the inside. They do not have your grace to carry it. You took their blows in silence. You rebuilt yourself in the dark, and you emerged with your heart still whole. But now, they are tasting only a fraction of what they once served you, and it is tearing them apart. Their minds will not rest. Their relationships are buckling under mistrust. Their peace has been replaced by the same gnawing anxiety they once tried to plant in you. But unlike you, they were never built to withstand it. This is not random misfortune, it is correction. The law of return in motion. Not petty vengeance, but perfect balance. Because here is the truth, chosen one, sacred energy, does not return in the same measure it left. It comes back heavier, sharper, and impossible to deny. And when it lands hardest on the hand that dared to misuse it. They were never equipped to carry the weight they tried to load onto you. Now they finally know it. Number 12, they thought they could handle you. Now they live with what they awakened. You do not step into sacred space with unclean hands and expect to walk away untouched. Back then, they believed you were harmless, soft, endlessly forgiving, the kind of soul they could drain, discard, and revisit whenever they pleased. To them, you were an easy mark. Quiet enough not to fight back, kind enough to keep offering chances. What they never understood was that beneath that calm exterior, you carried something ancient. You were not merely nice. You were guarded by a force they could not see, a weight they could not measure, and a law they could not outrun. When they crossed you, they did not simply mistreat a person. They mishandled sacred authority. They stepped into a spiritual realm where they had no clearance. And now, the laughter they once enjoyed at your expense has soured into sleepless nights, relentless setbacks, and an unshakable unease that follows them everywhere. This is not guilt. Guilt would require honesty. This is something deeper. It is a primal knowing that they crossed a line that can never be uncrossed. No matter how far they run, it shadows them. The air feels heavier. The silence rings louder. And the worst part? They cannot explain it away. Every financial block, every fracture in their relationships, every sudden decline in health or peace. None of it is random. It is the chain reaction that comes from mishandling what was never theirs to touch. They walked into sacred territory with arrogance, forgetting that the energy there does not forgive because of a well-placed sorry. It responds. It mirrors. You never had to seek revenge. The energy you carry already knows how to defend itself. And that is what haunts them, not just the memory of what they did, but the realization of who they did it to. You were not simply a person in their way. You were a mirror, a test, a divine checkpoint. And they failed badly. Now, the very force they mocked is making them feel everything they once made you endure. But unlike you, they do not have the resilience to carry it. It is breaking them. Sleep abandons them. Peace rejects them. Every room they enter feels smaller. Every future they try to build feels unstable. They are not haunted by ghosts. They are haunted by the cost. By the living proof that you were never ordinary. And touching you without reverence has become the most expensive mistake they will ever make. Number 13, their greatest punishment, knowing they will never touch you again. Some doors do not simply close, they vanish. And those who mistreated you will spend the rest of their lives searching for where the entrance used to be. They believed that pushing you out meant they had won. In their minds, you were disposable, a backup plan, a resource to draw from at will, a safe harbor they could disrespect yet still expect to return to. They could not recognize your worth because their pride blinded them. You were not merely a presence in their life, you were grace in human form. You were loyalty, healing, protection, and light wrapped in a soul they could not comprehend. But instead of honoring that, they acted as though you would always be there, no matter how many times they crossed the line. The truth is, you were the blessing they never realized they were living under. While you were near, doors opened for them that otherwise would have remained shut. Opportunities appeared from nowhere. Peace followed them into places it had never gone before. But they mistook it for luck, or worse, they credited it to themselves. They never knew it was you. And then, without warning, the atmosphere shifted. You stopped answering. You stopped explaining. You stopped making yourself available. No fight, no revenge, just silence, distance, and a door they will never find again. That is the punishment, not merely that you walked away, but that they will never walk back in. Now they stand in rooms that feel heavy, where opportunities slip through their hands and relationships collapse under their own weight. They cannot name what is missing, but you can. It's you. The energy you carried was a covering, a shield, a key, and they forfeited it the moment they treated you as an option. The most painful part for them is this: they must watch you rise. They see you stepping into blessings they cannot sabotage, entering circles they will never touch, and joining conversations they will never hear. And deep down, they know your elevation is undeniable proof of what they tried to erase. You were never beneath them. You were always operating above the level of their intentions. There is no re-entry, no reset. That access expired the moment they mishandled what was sacred. And now, their karma is lifelong, watching you thrive, untouchable, unbothered, unreachable, knowing they once had access to you and treated it as a joke. So, chosen one, every moment, every trial, every betrayal we've uncovered leads to this truth. What they designed for your fall became the blueprint for your rise. Their actions wrote their own ending. Your survival rewrote yours. You are not simply standing, you are standing untouchable. If this message spoke to you, drop the number 77 in the comments to show you are part of this movement. Like this video, subscribe for more, and share it so other chosen ones can find their strength. Together, we spread the light they thought they could extinguish. Your rise is their reckoning.